Did you know that you could purchase a house without a bank, without raising capital from partners, and for $0 out of pocket? I mean that literally. And I know that sounds crazy, but what is even more crazy is that you don't know about it. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about a real example of a property that I just purchased. I'm about to rent it out. I'm going to talk about how I purchased it with $0 out of pocket and how you can leverage the same strategy to starting to build wealth for yourself. So before you get mad at me for not telling you what the strategy is, it is called purchasing a property subject to the existing debt. So the seller transfers ownership of the property to you in form of a deed while still maintaining the liability of the loan that they got when they purchased the property initially. I know you're thinking that sounds crazy. Who would do that? Don't worry, I'm going to talk about in this video how it makes sense and how you can leverage that same strategy to building wealth for yourself whilst creating win-win scenarios. So the process is very similar to a traditional sale in that you still go through a title company. The only difference is instead of going out to get new debt in the form of new loans to pay off old debt and make the bank a bunch of fees, you're just taking over payments of the existing debt whilst the seller still maintains the liability of the loan. So the existing debt stays in play and you take over that in perpetuity. So in technicalities, because the loan is still in the seller's name, they maintain liability of the loan if you were to default. Now, you're not going to do that, but that is the whole premise of the strategy. And why does it make sense and it's a win-win scenario? The benefit for me as an investor, one of which we already talked about, I get to purchase this property and now own this property with $0 out of pocket. But even better is the fact that I leveraged a very cheap debt to do so. Why? Because the seller originated the debt 5 years ago. We're in 2026 now, and I'm able to leverage debt of interest rate that was procured back in 2020. That's the key thing about this strategy is I'm leveraging debt at 3% interest rate relative to the market current interest rate now at 7%. That difference in interest rate makes it, breaks it any deal, right? That's the difference between cash flowing or not cash flowing, even on a great asset like this. And I get to pick up a great asset as well. Now for the seller, they tried to sell the property on the market for months and weren't able to sell it. Now, one of the key reasons they weren't able to do that was because they had solar panels that were put on the property and that kind of deterred or reduced their buyer pool. And she had moved out of town. So instead of continuing to make payments on the property that she no longer gets utility out of it, she opted to just deed the property over to me where I take over the payments and she sold the property even though the debt still stays in play. Now she doesn't want to have to deal with property management or dealing with tenants, whereas that's my bread and butter, or that's something that I don't have any problem with. So it's a win-win in that case. So there are opportunities like this out there, but you have to go out there and find them. So let's talk about the numbers on this deal and why it made sense. So again, I purchased this property subject to. So these are the key two numbers that you need to understand on analyzing subject to deals. What is the PITI? And that stands for principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. That's the total cost in holding this property every month. So that number turns out to be $1,600. And the reason why it's very low is because the interest rate is not 7%. Now, if this number was 7%, this number will be closer to $2,400 every month. So the PITI is $1,600, the rent is $2,400. So the delta between those two numbers is $800. And now this represents cash flow. This is the cash flow that I'm getting every single month once a tenant is put in, and a tenant is going to be renting this property within the next 2 weeks. They're already signing the lease. So interest rate is 3%. Now, the other good thing about having a low interest rate is how the payment that you make every month is split between interest and principal pay down. The lower the interest rate, the higher the amount of the payment that goes towards the principal. So you think about it as a piggy bank that you not having to put in every month, but every single month it's going up because the tenants are putting it on your behalf. So because of the interest rate, over $550 of this $1,600 payment goes towards that principal pay down. So on an annual basis, this is about $7,200 every single month. So you have cash flow. You picked up an asset that the purchase price was $280,000. They actually listed it at $350. Couldn't get offers, dropped it down all the way to $330. But I was still able and still didn't get offers after 6 months. And so they took my offer with this purchase method at $280,000. So that's the total debt that consists of the first position lien as well as the debt for the solar panel. So I took over both, and both of those payment obligations I'm going to be able to delegate to a tenant. The payment of the mortgage every month on top of the rent. Now, in addition, they're also going to be paying the utilities for the solar panels with an electricity that's going to be generated every single month. So by the time you analyze these numbers, these two numbers already show you a green. The fact that I came out of pocket $0 means that any return that I'm getting is an infinite return because I didn't put any money up front. Really, my only cost was in paying the notary, which is $150, to notarize the deed transfer from the seller to myself. So how do you calculate the return on cash or return on cost and then return on investment? Those two numbers are different. Now, what is accounted for in return on cash? This is looking at how much return am I getting today on the cash that I invested in, just the immediate return on the cash. And so that number is looking at the cash flow. So on an annual basis, 800 times 12, $9,600 every year. If I invested $0, that's infinite. We have to account for return on cash and return on cost. Now, I bought it in January, we're in March, so it took me 2 months to find a tenant. Now, in those 2 months, I had to make the payments to keep the property or keep the loan current until the tenant came. So 2 months, that's $3,200. But remember, $5,550 every month is going into the principal pay down. So I got $1,100 out of this $3,200 that I paid that I actually didn't lose. I just put it into a piggy bank, right? And so really my cost from when I purchased up to now is only about $2,000. Because if you net out the $1,100 that I actually still keep in my net worth, I didn't lose that. So the return on cost, the return on cash will be $2,000. You're looking at the $2,000 cost and a $9,600 return. So that number is going to be over 400%. That's a whopping return on investment. It trumps any return that you're going to get in the stock market, minerals, or whatever asset class. And on top of that, you still have the pride of ownership of real property. Now, return on investment incorporates other numbers. What do the other numbers incorporate into that? One, you have the principal pay down. So, like I said, the piggy bank that the tenants are going to be making every month now is $5,550, and so on an annual basis, that's $7,200. So now you have cash flow at $9,200. You have principal pay down that is $7,200. And then you also have other streams like tax depreciations that I'm going to get, whatever that number turns out to be. It could be $15,000. It could be more, actually, if I do decide to do cost segregation and bonus depreciation and stuff like that. You also have inflation-induced debt erosion. So because the interest rate is at 3% and inflation is closer to 7%, that arbitrage or the delta is actually devaluing this 280 number every single year. So 10% of that, if the delta is 5%, over almost $15,000 is eroded from this debt that is fixed, because it's fixed over the next 26 years. So there is a multiple streams of return. But if you just calculate the cash that I'm getting and the principal pay down that is paid down on the loan every year, you're looking at close to 1,000% return, not even considering the tax depreciation and the debt erosion. So these are the numbers that you have to factor in, and this is the reason why I love purchasing these types of properties, because number one, it adds more net worth to me because there's $50K of equity that I can't realize that today, but there's $50K built-in equity. I'm also getting an additional $800 added to cash every month, and I'm building a piggy bank in the future, and this property is a property that was built only 5 years ago. So this number is very real because there's no deferred maintenance and things like that. A lot of the stuff is still under builder's warranty. And so I can keep this asset, and this number is going to keep going up every year in terms of the big appreciation. So this return of investment is going to be a whole lot. This is the beauty of real estate, guys. You need to learn how to find these opportunities. So one of the questions I know you're asking is, where do these deals come from? I just told you earlier, it was a property that was listed on the market for 6 months and didn't sell. So it came from an expired listing. So the listing went expired on the realtor because the realtor wasn't able to sell it. My team reached out to the seller directly and said, hey, look, I know you've been trying to sell this property for 6 months. I'm actual buyers. I don't know if your realtor sent you my offer, and then that gets them talking. And we actually had to do 7 months of follow-up to actually get this deal finalized. So even after the 6 months that it was listed, she still ended up trying to see if she could sell it a different way, and then ultimately came back and sold the property to me. So this is what is required. The numbers look good, but you gotta put in the effort to go find these rare opportunities. But they do exist out there. So I'm hoping that you can take some of the nuggets that I taught you in this lesson, go out in your market, find expired listings, pitch them this acquisition strategy, and build long-term wealth for yourself. So if you enjoyed this video, you got any bit of value out of it, please do me a favor and like and subscribe. It's a free thing that you could do, but it goes a long way in supporting me, supporting the channel, and helping me reach even more people. So I'm counting on you. Please leave a like and a subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.